The descendants of those who settled in rural America at the turn of the 20th century are presently so well established that the hardships endured by those early settlers are only distant stories. Oscar Mumm, 32, and Maria Mumm, 25, arrived in Stevens County, Horton Township, in 1898. Already, these two young people, in both their individual and married lives, had experienced many challenges. One had immigrated, and one had been orphaned as a child, and now in this early settlement of Stevens County, they were new citizens with 3 children. Maria was the immigrant, an infant of 3 months when her parents, Heinrich and Dorothea Cruz, arrived from Hanover Province, Germany, in 1873. The family first settled in Elmhurst, Illinois. 12 years later, they moved to Fairmont, Minnesota. Fairmont was where Oscar and Maria met and became a couple. Oscar's journey to Minnesota began in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where he was born in August of 1866 to Carl and Emily Mumm. His parents were both natives and immigrants from Germany. His father had a successful cigar-making business just a couple of blocks from the Pabst Brewery. The Mumm family was in cigar-making back in Germany. Oscar's father died when he was 9, and his mother before he was 11. There were 4 sons that were all orphaned. Only the youngest was adopted. Oscar and his other 2 brothers were put in an orphanage in Addison, Illinois. When he had become of age, a settlement from his father's estate of around $500 was made and offered him a tidy start to life on his own. At age 21, Oscar set out for new locations and settled in Fairmont, Minnesota. Here he met Maria, and following a courtship, they married at her church, the German Lutheran Church, on May 1st, 1891. Maria was 18 and Oscar was almost 25. They tried farming near Fairmont for 7 years and then moved with their 3 children to Horton Township in Stevens County. To the couple were born a total of 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls, between the years 1893 and 1911. Their names were Edwin, Adolph, William, Oscar, Selma, Henry, Laura, Frida, Martha, and Helen. The children attended country school and District Number 20. William, the third-born son, was a recruit for World War I. He served in the war and returned to Stevens County. Sadly, at age 21, he died in 1919 from pneumonia. A second child, Frida, died at age 16 in 1921. The challenges of the early 20th century were many. World War I, then the Depression and the Dust Bowl years all added enormous pressures to the normal struggles of the pioneer family. Through these decades, they planted and harvested, built buildings and the herds, and acquired the acreage needed for a diversified farm. They regularly planted and harvested over an acre of potatoes for themselves and to sell. Oscar had a preference for shorthorn cattle, Duroc hogs, and horses. He loved his horses. Even with mechanization coming to the farming industry during World War I, Oscar preferred farming with horses. He never owned a tractor. He was hired for the maintenance on the township roads in Horton Township. Always he graded the roads with a horse-drawn grader implement. Family members still have parts of those original implements. The family attended Zion Lutheran Church in Horton Township. Maria enjoyed the fellowship and activities of the Ladies' Aid. She shared her talents in quilting and cooking with the church projects. Maria found sewing both a necessity and also a pleasure. Gardening for food was one needed activity, but her flower gardens were a pleasure she could engage in at the same time. She always made Christmas a celebration. This tradition continued each year and was enjoyed and remembered by the extended family as it grew. The family continued the get-togethers after her death. It was a memory of such importance that it needed to be continued. She had inspired the good family times and the importance of this most important Christian holiday.
Take me riding in the car, take me
Oscar's
riding
preference for horses for farming and road work did not carry over for travel. He was quite taken with the Model T cars. His Model T was driven for years and well cared for. He would take it to Martin County near Fairmont every year, pulling a two-wheel trailer to pick up his Duroc boar. He used it for peddling the potatoes from that acre on the farm. The children and grandchildren remember it being covered with a bear skin or a cloth to keep the sun off of it in the summer and to keep the engine warmer in the winter. If it tipped over in the ditch, you could just stand it up again and off you would drive. Farming practices of that era included grading and sorting your own seed for next year's crop. He used the equipment of that time to accomplish this for himself and for other farmers in the neighborhood. Many of the farm tools that were used in the family farm life have been preserved by descendants. Corn graders sorted and graded the seed, and corn grinders took the corn seed off the cob. Most farmers had an abundance of handwork in planting and harvesting the crops. After struggling through the Depression and the Dust Bowl years, by 1936, the farm's financial well-being was strained. Oscar and Maria had been working hard on this piece of land for close to 40 years. It had supported their immediate family needs, but was not gaining ground on ownership levels. The couple lost the farm in 1936, and shortly after that, in 1937, Maria passed away. Oscar's son Adolf and his wife Alpha were able to purchase the farm and keep it in the Mumm name. Oscar lived with them and helped on the farm for a time, and then retired and bought a home in the city of Morris. He took a trip to the North Shore and Duluth and explored some of the wonders of that part of the state. For the next 19 years, Oscar lived without his life partner, Maria, but took comfort with his ever-growing descendant family, which now in 2014 numbered 334. They enjoyed his wit, were inspired by his faith, and his annual messages that he wrote for his birthday and delivered each year. On his 81st birthday, his message was, "Please do not judge. Do as you read. What you want done to you, do to others. Let us all keep before us day by day that life is uncertain and after all short. I have lived 81 years, but life seems short after all." These birthday messages to family continued every year until his 90th. Although in Oscar's own summations he had never enjoyed the blessings of financial success, he instilled in his family more meaningful values. His importance to them was not in money gained, but in his values of faith, honesty, and hard work. Those values, as well as a dandy little jig he would dance, a twinkle in his eye, a pitched baseball, and the jingling of coins in his pockets, are the little gestures that are remembered of this pioneer man who lived to be 90 years old. This was a blessing of its own. He had been presented with challenges, had met them and overcame them, ever keeping his eye on his faith and the promises of the scriptures that he believed.
Trouble in